Make host. Yes. Okay, try now, Tim.
Okay, that's going to work. Thank you, Marcus. Great to see you and hear you, Marcus, as well. And we'll go over here to slideshow. Beginning. All right. Do you see that, Marcus?
Yes.
Okay, great. So this is my station, K3LR. We are on the western edge of Pennsylvania, and I've been licensed since 1972, but doing multi contesting since 1992. And here I am, 13 years old. This is when I passed my general in the bedroom where I grew up in Sharon, Pennsylvania, and collecting QSL cards. Back then, I was licensed when I was 12 years old, so this was a little bit of an upgraded station, but I learned to love CW at a very early age. And if anybody has looked at my QRZ page, CW is my first language. In fact, you wouldn't know it, but right now I'm in the middle of a CW contest. The North American CW Sprint is going on, and I just took a little break, but I operated the first 2 hours on 20 and 40 meters. And when we're done here, I'll pick it up on 80 meters later on. K3LR is located 65 miles northwest of Pittsburgh. It's right in between Erie, Pittsburgh, Cleveland, and Akron, Ohio. So it's easy to get to a major city, about an hour, maybe an hour and a half to get there. But and it's very rural where I am compared to Oklahoma City, even Edmond. This is a very rural area of Western Pennsylvania. And for any of you who have traveled on Interstate 80 through Pennsylvania and Ohio, the station is very visible right from Interstate 80 on the south side, 1 mile off of the Ohio-Pennsylvania border. So as far as zones go, the CQ Zone 4 is in Ohio. We are the furthest west station in CQ Zone 5. And I like to say we might be the last ones, the Europeans here, but we're the first Zone 5s that the Japanese stations here. The secret to this QTH is a dramatic drop-off towards Europe and Japan. Those are two areas of the world that are very important for DX contesting. Over 75% of our contacts in a given weekend will come out of Europe, and about 7 or 8% will come out of Japan. And then the rest of the world, Australia and the Caribbean and South America make up for the rest. But very dramatic drop off to a riverbed very quickly, which gives an enhanced takeoff angle gain in critical operating directions. And taking a look at the northern end of the property, there is a large antenna array for 160 meters. This is a 5-element rotatable vertical Yagi, and I'll talk about that in more detail in a minute. In the middle of the photo, there are 2 4-square vertical arrays for 80 meters. It's just like stacking Yagis. They're the centers of the arrays are 5/8 wave apart. And so in the broadside directions, we get 3 dB more gain over a single 4-square. And then at the bottom of the photo, it doesn't look very big, but that's a very large tower that holds the large 40-meter beams and also antennas for 20 and 10 meters as well. In the center of the property where the house is, 15-meter tower is there. That's a 160-foot tower for 15 meters with 4 Yagis on it. And then 4 Yagis on 10 meters in the back of the house, and then a large tower for 20 meters at the bottom of this photo. So let's get into the 40-meter tower. This tower is, all the towers here, except for the verticals, are made by Pyrod. Very strong. They're solid legs, so it's not pipe tower. And this has got a 24-inch face. The 3 large antennas here are 3 full-size 4-element 40-meter Yagis. Each one of these Yagis weighs 410 pounds. The booms are 50 feet long, and the longest element is 75 feet long. That's the reflector. Notice that the antennas on the side of the tower are on ring rotators that allow the antennas to rotate around the towers 360 degrees. This tower is 275 feet tall, and at the top of the tower is a 9-element 10-meter beam. And that is a very effective antenna for working the Route 66 1010 net, hosted by Bob KM5GZ. When there is sporadic E, this 9-element elephant gun is the antenna of choice to work into Oklahoma City. And but sometimes that's the only antenna we can hear some of the weak multipliers on. There is 138 square feet of wind load on this tower. Each one of the 40-meter beams is 25 square feet on its own. So very large antennas here. You can get a little bit of a better idea of just how big this is. This is the view from my neighbor's house. And so I am in a neighborhood, although it is rural. I do have neighbors, but we get along very well. And I've been here for 33 years now. And so everybody gets along well. And they let me do my thing and they do their thing. So it works out good. Another shot of the tall tower on 40 meters with the big 4-element Yagis. And down on the tower, closer to the bottom, you can see the verticals for 80 meters, also some 10-meter Yagis and 20-meter Yagis that are in there. In the middle of this tower is a horizontal Waller flag antenna. This is made by N4IS. This is a rotatable receive antenna that we use on 160 meters. And it looks like 4-element 15-meter Yagi, but there's actually 2 loops there. Those are fiberglass elements. And sometimes that's the best antenna for receiving on 160. And if you look up at the 40-meter tower, it has got a lot going on with all the ring rotators. And second tallest tower is the 20-meter tower. There are 4 6-element 50-foot boom 20-meter Yagis on this tower. And on top of the mast is an 80-meter dipole that rotates, and that can be tuned any frequency from 3.5 to about 3.8 megahertz. And we use that for the second station on 80 meters. There are 11 operating positions here at K3LR, 2 on 80, 40, 20, 15, and 10 meters, and 1 on 160 meters. And I'll explain that in a little bit more detail later. Some of the 20-meter Yagis mounted on the tower, again, there are 4 of them at 230, 170, 110, and 50 feet. In the middle of this tower, there are 2 W6NL Moxons that we use on the second station on 40. Those are the antennas that have the T elements, and they're electrically full size, but mechanically and physically shorter. And but they work very well. It's a reflector and driven element and styled off of Moxons, and W6NL developed this antenna. All the antennas here, or all the towers here at K3LR, are guyed with Philly strand, so you don't see any insulators in there. It's all non-conductive Philly strand. And looking up the 20-meter tower, again, lots going on, and you can see just how massive these Pyrod towers are. Very, very tough construction. The 10-meter tower, you can see the 4 antennas just above the garage is the bottom one at 33 feet. The top one is at 135 feet. 8-element Yagis for 10 meters. And unfortunately, back in 2018, during field day, actually, we had a mishap where a driver had a little too much to drink, got off the road and hit a guy wire on the 20-meter tower. And so we had to dismantle the tower and put up a new tower. And the old tower is in the foreground. The new tower with the brighter painting is in back of that. And we brought in a crane, and it took a couple of months, but we rebuilt the tower. You know it's a big crane when they bring in another crane to build the big crane. This is a 100-ton crane, and did a very nice job for us constructing the tower, the new tower going up. You can see the ring rotators in place. This is the top plate with the DX Engineering TB400 3-inch bearing. You can just see the massiveness of these Pyrod towers, solid legs, and very, very strong. And here are 2 of the 4 antennas for 20 meters. These are 2 brand new 6-element OWA Yagis. And here's the top Yagi going into place using the crane and headed up the tower. And now at the top of the tower, going onto the mast, and you can see the steps that are used to climb up the mast to get to the 80-meter dipole for any maintenance that goes on. And we were able to FaceTime to the top of the tower so that I could see the rig expert sweep right from the top of the tower to make sure everything looked good. And back to the 40-meter Yagis. This is the driven element on the 40-meter Yagi. Back in 2019, I actually replaced the Yagis and made them stronger and better, and changed the electrical design a little bit. The center of the driven element here is 2.5-inch OD aluminum tubing, and you can see the massive insulator for the boom to element clamp. And so these are very long elements, and so they do have some sag to them, although as far as 40-meter beams go, 30 inches of sag is not very bad at all. And again, very large antenna, the 4-element full-size 40-meter Yagi. And here's the crane putting the new 40-meter Yagis on the tower. This crane is just beautiful, and so we had it back. Everything is working. This is before the start of the contest in 2019. I have a big love for geochrons. This is on an 84-inch TV, 4K Ultra. It is the largest and best TV in the house, and it's dedicated to one thing, watching the sun and where the gray line is. That's very important for working DX. And we do have large feed lines here at K3LR for the higher frequencies. You might find repeaters using 7/8 and 1 5/8, but we use it on 10 meters and 15 meters and even on 160 meters, because the 160-meter antenna is a long way away. This is the driven element of the 5-element vertical Yagi we use for 160 meters. It's a full quarter wave tower, 120 feet tall. And then there are 4 T-wires that are parasitics that are off of this tower. And in this example, and the wires can be either a director or reflector, or they can float so that they're out of the system. In this example, the right yellow wire is grounded, and all these wires are cut as directors. So that, and once you ground that to the radial system, it becomes a director. The element on the left that is also yellow is a reflector. We put a small inductor in series with its feed, and then the 2 blue wires are floated, and what you get is a reflector. The tower is the driven element, and the right-hand yellow element is the director. So that's a 3-element vertical Yagi. And by using relays at the base of these vertical wires, we can switch them in for those configurations. So here's one of the T-wire switch boxes. This is the driven element on a broadcast style ceramic insulator. And here you can see the 1 5/8 going to the feed point, and 300 radials, quarter wave radials underneath this. This is underneath the 80-meter verticals, 120 quarter wave radials under each one of the 8 verticals. And you can see the verticals in place. This is the center 4 towers, and lots of strap and radials. And recently, we just replaced the high towers that were there with aluminum towers for the verticals on 80 meters. And so they are completely welded together so that they have a 60-foot span with a little 10-foot stinger out of the top so that we can tune them perfectly. And these verticals work even better than the old high tower verticals, because there is absolutely no resistance between the connections. Everything is welded together. And DX Engineering custom insulators for the insulators underneath. And here you can see 4 towers in a 4-square. This is one of the 2 4-squares for 80 meters. And here you see 5 of the towers. You can see that 2 4-squares are separated by about 163 feet. Use lots of test equipment to get these arrays set so they operate perfectly using the Comtech Systems hybrid coupler. And we also have 4 squares on 40, 20, 15, and 10 meters. Here's the one on 20. Here's the one on 15. We use these to receive on so that we can receive while we're CQing in the in-band situation. This is an 8-circle receiving array by High Z. It's 23-foot verticals, and then they are phased together in this center box. Here is all the couplers and delay lines and combiners that do all the phasing for these 8 verticals, and we can develop 8 different directions out of this. This replaced all the beverage antennas at K3LR many years ago. I actually installed this system when I still lived in Oklahoma City. I would come up on the weekends and work on putting this in, and it's very effective. We use this on 80 and 160 meters. Here are the chokes that are on the feed lines, and my friend W3YQ, who still comes up every other weekend, and we do tower projects together. We met on ADCW when we were 12 years old, and we've been lifelong friends. Wiring up all those chokes and all the RG6 coax cables. This is the base of one of the verticals for the High Z array. And again, it's a 23-foot piece of aluminum. And then inside the control box is a buffer amplifier that feeds the 75 ohm system. And of course, there are 2 chokes in here to make sure that the RG6 stays cold at for the power and the signal. And another look at all the buffers involved. I have a 4-square and an 8-circle for receiving. Inside the choke box, 26 turns of small 75 ohm coax around a number 31 toroid. This is the K3LR house, and it was built in 1865. I've completely restored it and actually added things like air conditioning. Of course, when this house was built, there was no electricity, there was no gas, and there was no heat upstairs. A lot of things had to be added to this, but I've even I visited the Marconi operation up in Massachusetts, and actually I have recreated the Marconi stairs going up to the 2nd floor. So every night when I go to bed, I think of Marconi, who's one of the guys that really made this fabulous wireless hobby possible. And we have our own 50 kVA transformer from the Pennsylvania Power Company. If that fails, we have a 50 kW generator. This is an 8-cylinder Chevy engine, runs on natural gas, and 8 seconds after a power outage, we are back up with full power. It takes, during a contest, it takes about 24 kW to run this operation, so we've got a 2-to-1 safety factor in the load. This is the shack. This is an underground basement deal that I built onto the house after I bought it, and actually had the ground rods poured in the floor before we poured the concrete, and there are 11 operating positions around the tables here. And on the left are the 280-meter positions, and the 160-meter position is right next to the outside door. There are 2 areas where the coax cable comes in. This is the southeast, and here's the northeast. Everything is labeled and documented. And I talked about those ground rods in the floor. There are 13 of them, and you can see one of them here with the CAD weld and the number 2 tin solid wire going around. This sits right underneath the operator's feet. And here are some operators during an ARL DXCW contest, and during the phone contest. These 2 guys are on 15 meters. One is calling CQ, and the other is looking for stations calling CQ. And the idea is that one of the watt meters is always moving. This is the 10-meter mult position, the 2nd station on 10, with 4 rotator boxes. Of course, the IC7851 single band amplifiers that don't have any band switches, all home brew that I made, and they're very efficient single 8877s. Here are the antenna switch boxes. This is the new one for 40 meters and allows the operator to select the 40-meter antennas at 260, 190, 120. In this particular position, all 3 are being fed, so 1/3 of the power is going to each one of them. And then there's a relay box on the tower that actually matches the impedances correctly, depending upon how many antennas you're feeding. If you're feeding 1, 2, 3, and in the case of the 4-high stack, also for matching 4 antennas together. When you have 4 antennas together, it's 12.5 ohms of impedance that you have to step back up to 50 ohms It's all done with coax transformers. And with the 4 high stacks, we can feed all of them. We can feed the top 3, the bottom 3, the top 2 antennas, the middle 2, or the bottom 2. And the operators on a band work together. These 2 guys are on 15 meters. And again, they're not allowed to transmit at the same time. There is a lockout box that makes sure that they don't, but they have to work together, so they'll always have one transmitter on the air. Here you can see the bottom 3 are being fed. So 1/3 of the power is going at 120 feet, 1/3 at 80 feet, and 1/3 at 40 feet. The operator has a heads-up display, so he can see exactly what's going on while he's looking at the watt meter. And I love the Drake W4 watt meter, but we actually wore out the SO239 connectors. So last year we replaced them with brand new Amphenol SO239, so they're good to go. Here's the rotor box stacked for 40 meters, and these are the 4-element 40s. And you can see all the antennas are aimed in the same direction, but they could be aimed in different directions. It just depends upon what the operator wants to accomplish at that time. This is an example of one of the single band amplifiers. Again, homebrew, single 8877, and we run no more than 1500 watts out. Each one of these 8877 amplifiers has its own power supply at 4000 volts, and they sit on the floor. This is the 20-meter run position with the 4 high stack. You can see the 4 rotators and the antenna control there, as well as the watt meter and the monoband amplifiers. And here are the 2 positions for 20 meters side by side where the operators will work together. These are the 2 positions on 10 meters. Hasn't been a lot of activity there lately, but we are really ready for the new sunspot cycle. This is the 160 meter position with a lot of hardware here, lots of receive antennas. During our multi-multi events, I operate 160 CW. It's a very challenging, very hard band, and signals are very weak, but we've got some good receive antennas here, and we do quite well on 160. John N2NC does the phone contests here on 160. And here's some of the receiving hardware, the horizontal Waller flag control, also the noise canceling controller from DX Engineering that allows us to combine receive antennas for even greater power control. One of the operators that is operated from here is Sandy, DL1QQ. She's also licensed as N0QQ. She formerly worked for the German FBI. Currently, she is working in the fraud department of the police department in her local town. We operated together as a team for WRTC 2018 in Germany. And so she is operated from here, one of the best contest operators in the world. And we use the Bose QC15 headsets. Noise canceling is important when you have 11 operators in the same room. We use the ICOM IC7851 radios at all the positions. It's best in class ergonomics and receiver performance. And here's my very good friend from Oklahoma City, Al N5UM. Al has operated 75 meters on phone up here for probably the last 10 years. Well, no, longer than that, because he was coming up even when I was living in Oklahoma City. So Al and I operate as a team on 75 meters. Every once in a while, Al needs a little power nap. This is 4:15 in the morning. And you can see also in the foreground, the new computers that we use here. This is an Intel NUC. It is powered by 13.8 volts DC, full Windows computer, has a solid state hard drive and sound card, everything you would want in a 4-inch by 4-inch by 1.5 inch thick form factor. These are great RFI quiet computers. You can see here's another one on the back of the 20-meter monitor. To share those dual 4 squares on 80 meters between the 2 stations, we have a custom designed box, the 80-meter XL twin turbo +2 that allows fast switching between the 2 stations. And we have high power harmonic filters. You can imagine what it's like to operate field day with 100 watts and small antennas. When you've got high gain antennas, 1500 watts, and you know, even though there are 14 acres here, you can have lots of problems with harmonics. So we have high power harmonic filters here. When operators aren't operating, they are at the DX barn. And this gas station sign was actually, I found it when I was going to a scout event down in near Sulphur, Oklahoma, and it was on an abandoned gas station. I found out who the owners were, purchased it, and shipped it up here. And I'm sure some of you remember DX Gas back in the 70s and 60s, but very proud of this working sign. After each contest, we turn it on, and it's just beautiful and reminds me of all of the great friends that I still have in Oklahoma. Inside the DX barn is a very comfortable area, a full kitchen, shower, a couple of restrooms, and upstairs sleeping for 8. And in the back of the upstairs is over 100,000 QSL cards. And I've instructed whoever is left to put those in my coffin so that I can finally get them sorted. That's been a project that I just won't get to until I can't do anything else. And so we have good accommodations here. The operators have fun. We take this very seriously. These guys are all paying for plane tickets, taking time away from their families, taking time off of work. And the idea is to have a shot at winning. And we've done pretty good at that. We don't win them all, but we have won our fair share. And every once in a while, the operators have to take a little break. This is probably at about 3 o'clock in the morning on 20 meters. That's Dave, KM3T. We use foot switch on phone. We do not use Vox. This is how we actuate the transmitters. And here's that lockout box that I talked about between the run and the mult station. And we have the control for the showing the lockout box activity. You see the little LED in the gray box. It's off. Now it's on. This is showing the status of the run station transmitter so that the multiplier guy knows exactly what's going on. And here's the controls for some of those 4 squares. This is the 4 square on 20 meters down on the bottom row. On the top row is they have 2 Yagis on the 20 mult station, one at 150 feet, one at 100 feet. And the BIP is both in phase, or the BOP is both out of phase. Again, having a good time, that's what it's all about. Here's Otis NP4G, is fluent in Spanish and Portuguese, and comes from Puerto Rico to operate with us in the ARL DX phone contest, and with George N3GJ from Pittsburgh. And here's Phil and Justin. G4TSH is from London. Phil just is a retired engineer from American Airlines. We again met when we were 13 years old on ADCW and have been lifelong friends. And Justin and Phil having a good time on ADCW. And here you can see just about all the positions have somebody operating. 40 meters is on the left, 160, you can see me beneath the geochron in the rear. The 80 meter guys there, Justin, and over to the right is Dan N6, or I'm sorry, K1TO and Dave K5GN on 20. And then the 10 meter guys there, BE3RA and N3GJ and N6AN right back there on 15. And we have had youth here. Some of you may recall back in 2019, we had Team Exuberance. It was an all youth team. All the these young operators did all of the operating. None of us old timers or parents did any of the operating. This is Bryant, KG5HVO, and Violetta, KM4ATT. They're on 20 meters with the largest 20 meter antenna system in the world, the 4-high stack. And they had a great time. VE7DZO and K6JO. VE7DZO calls British Columbia home. K6JO is from San Diego, and they're on 40 meters. And here they are after the contest writing thank you letters to the people that sent in about $5,000 so that they could fly to K3LR for the dream operation. And they had projected that they would be a success if they worked 3,800 QSOs. Well, when the dust settled and the 48 hours were done, they had worked over 6,000 QSOs. And they had never operated at K3LR before. So it was a crash course on Friday afternoon to figure it all out, and it all worked. And Tommy, HA8RT, is in the back there. He's the tall guy. He is from Hungary. It's the first time anyone in his family has ever been outside of the United States or out of Hungary and traveled to North America. Marty, NN1C, down in the lower left. You're going to hear lots about all of these kids, especially Marty. Marty is just finishing up his first year of electrical engineering studies now. And so this was a really fun deal. We had planned to do the CW event. All these kids are hotshot CW operators. And so they will come back for a CW contest once this virus thing is in the rear view. Here's Michael, W3MLJ, during the 13 Colonies event. K2M spends one day at K3LR every year. And we get visitors from all over the world that visit the K3LR station. Here's a visitor from Finland. And here's Riley Hollingsworth, K4ZDH, visited here and gave the place the white glove treatment. And he said, we passed with flying colors. You may recall Riley used to work as the Enforcement Bureau at the FCC, and our good friend Hal, W8HC, a great de-expedition operator. And look at these four guys. They lost their way one time after Dayton and came to K3LR. On the left is Ron, KC5QCV, and of course Dave, NE5S, who's now a silent key, but super great guy, and Tom Webb, WA9AFM, and Steve Duskin, NE5SD, all visited K3LR. This was one of the happiest days of my life when these four guys came and visited up here. And we had great time, and we also use analytics here at K3LR. We keep track of how we do versus the competition, and what our high water marks are on the various bands for QSOs and for countries. This is the CW skimmer rack. I should say this is what the CW skimmer rack used to look like that feeds the reverse beacon network. It's now been replaced by the NUX. Here are 6 software-defined radios from Perseus, and there's one for 160, 80, 40, 20, 15, and 10. They're working right now. If you go to the K3LR website at k3lr.com and you click on CW skimmer, you can see exactly what these receivers are hearing right at any point in time. And I use lots of ferrite here to keep the RF off things and to keep noise down. This is power distribution for the NUCs that are used in the skimmer using linear power supplies. There are no wall warts on this property at all. There's not even an iPhone charger that has not been converted to linear. Wall warts are the scourge. They make noise. They also create intermod. And so there are no wall warts here at K3LR, only linear power supplies. We make coffee 1 cup at a time. We work hard and we eat, to feed 11 or 12 operators takes a lot of stuff to feed them. We do have a chef on our phone weekends. This is Chef Sal, WM2H, a great operator, but he loves to cook more than he likes to operate. So we let him take care of smoking whatever he can find down at the meat market. And we eat good and we work hard and we want to have a chance to win. And breakfast is done to order. And I cook breakfast on CW, and N2NC makes breakfast on phone. And so the operators operate and eat at the same time. And we use WindTest for our logging software. And this is what a WindTest screen looks like. This is where call signs are going in. This was a good morning on 160 meters. We're working JAs, which doesn't happen all the time. And you can see E2A in there from Thailand was worked on 40 meters. So lots of good DX. And it keeps track of our QSOs, countries, points, and score. Here is a score from several years ago where we had 3,242 QSOs on 10 meters and 170 countries. I cannot wait for 2025 and that sunspot cycle to peak. I am a voracious QSLer. We do have a QSL database, so we don't send QSL cards over and over to the same station, but I do send about 50 pounds of cards every year to the ARRL QSL Bureau, the outgoing bureau, to make sure that everybody that works K3LR gets a QSL card. I love t-shirts. This is Team K3LR and CW. And after the contests are over, we actually get on the real 3830 and compare scores live. So we have a pretty good idea of how we are finishing right after the contest is over. Sometimes we win a plaque. This is one in the RTTY contest, and we have started doing those. This is what a typical crew looks like. And ILTHRS, I love this ham radio stuff. And so that was the t-shirt. And the young lady next to me is actually Sal's girlfriend that also is a very, very good cook that came up from Texas to help out in cooking. So this is one of the teams for a phone contest in the ARRL DX international competition. Here's a CW team, again with the K3LR CW t-shirts, another CW team in 2018, and coming from Toronto and London, England, and Florida, and several from the West Coast. And the reason we do this, we're best friends, and we've been very, many of these guys I've known for 45 years, some longer, and so we have a great time. I'm most proud of the fact that during the year, the K3LR station is open for tours, and so we'll get back to that once the virus thing gets tamped down. This is the University of Pittsburgh W3YI Pitt Panther Radio Club that came and visited with their faculty advisor. Typically, these tours last a whole day, where we have lunch, we walk around, we talk about the antennas, we talk about the station inside, and we also talk about going to school and finding a job. So it's really a great opportunity to interact with many clubs. We've had clubs drive 4 and 5 hours to come and visit this station, and I welcome clubs to do that. And of course, the Oklahoma DX Association is welcome to travel. I think it would take, as I recall, when I drove it one time, it's a little over 20 hours. It's an easy drive from Oklahoma City up here to K3LR. So that is my presentation, and we certainly can. I'll answer some of the questions, and I want to start up here at the top. Let's see, Jim, KI7AY says, I guess I better keep being a good customer, Tim. Looking how much you've done for ham radio, I'm happy to do so. Thank you so much for your nice comments. And Tim, do you think there's any chance that 8877s will be produced more cheaply in the future? And that's from Jim KI7AY. No, I don't, because the 8877s were used in diathermy machines and other medical equipment, and they've all been replaced now with solid state gear. So I don't think that we'll have inexpensive 8877s. There's still good used ones on the market. I've never bought a new one. I just buy the pools and the used ones. And some of these 8877s are 35 years old. I mean, if you don't abuse them, they last a long, long time. Let's see here. I have a few questions. What precautions do you take for lightning? In March, I unplug everything and I take all the connectors off. And so that's the precaution. Don't have stuff hooked up. Do you monitor weather for lightning, or can you operate through it? We never operate a contest during a lightning. All of our operating is going on between October and March. So we don't have any lightning storms in those times. Can you take a direct strike? The towers have been hit, but the damage has been minimal throughout the years because everything is disconnected. What issues did you have with the FAA for going through the 200-foot limit? None. As many of you know, I worked for Cellular One and also for AT&T, so I was very well aware of the procedures to do that. I simply did all the investigations and filings as needed by the FCC and the FAA, and everything was approved, and I have all the paperwork for it, so everything is done on the up and up. How is amplifier tuning managed? I tune the amplifiers on the Friday afternoon before the contest, and they're not touched during the contest. Using those OWA designs, the SWR is very low on every antenna here, so the amplifiers do not need to be retuned on a given weekend. Between CW and phone, yes, they do need to be retuned, but once they're tuned, they are set for the entire band, and so they don't need to be touched. Do you use full QSK or just semi? It's all semi. These amplifiers do have vacuum relays in them, but we are not set up to do QSK. How does one qualify to be an operator, and how much training is required? Qualifying to be an operator, you have to have a pretty deep contest resume of doing successful single op and multi-op events, and somebody has to move on or become a silent key, because whoever is here for a given contest has the rights of first refusal going forward, and it's very rare that we have anybody that doesn't come back. So we've got a really experienced team here that has very deep resumes. They've been in the World Radio Team Championship. They've been on other leading teams, and so that is how. And the training, well, most of these guys are very savvy in the ICOM radios, so there's very little training, and the antenna systems are very self-explanatory. And I made it that way. You don't see a lot of automation here. It's very simple and very reliable. Let's see, what kind of tower antenna maintenance protocols are in place? Well, there's a tower crew here generally 3 days a week. But during the virus, I've actually given them a couple of months off because we haven't been doing any multi-operator events. But there's a lot of maintenance here. There's over 50 different antennas, 13 towers. There's a lot going on, and we are constantly making improvements. For instance, last summer, if you watched any of my Facebook Live or YouTube Lives, you will know that we changed out 13 different Yagis here. Yagis that had been up in the air for 25 or 30 years came down and got replaced. You know, it was time. So there's a lot of work that goes on here. Do you ever compete in a low power category? I don't. We did do some of the RTTY contests in low power, but that was just a one-off. Most all the time, the amplifiers are on and 1500 watts. And see, Paul says, an awesome look at the station. Have always wanted to see it. What thoughts do you have to build and maintain interest in ham radio with the youth? Well, I think the Team Exuberance project says it all. That was an idea that Violetta had. I embraced it, and it has spurred a lot of other youth operations around the world where station owners are hosting, kids to get on the air and have fun with ham radio. And so once this virus gets tamped down, we're going to do more of that and get that really revved up. If you have any other questions, you can put them in the chat. But Marcus, I don't see. Here's another one. Heat management must be an issue. How much AC do you need to control the heat? I have 2 3-ton air conditioners that run full out, even in February down here. One is on the north wall and one is on the south wall. So we do have lots of air conditioning here to keep, you can imagine with, 11 people down here as well as 11 amplifiers, it can get mighty warm. What is your favorite CW contest to operate for fun on your own? I guess it would be the North American Sprint, which is going on right now. And I won it 3 times back in the 80s, but there's some real hotshot operators that are able to do 2 radios at once and CQ on 2 bands, interleave, and this place is not set up for that. To change bands, I have to change chairs. So, all the antennas don't come into a central area. So, so that's how that works. And Marcus, I don't see any other questions, so I think we've covered it.
Tim, we just had another question come in via the question and answer from Sydney K5SRT. He says, how much amperage on 220 volts do you have?
We have a 300 amp service here, so we got plenty of power.
Okay, and that's about the last question.
Well, Tim, this has been, as the last time, has been simply fabulous. Thank you so much for taking a break from your favorite contest to talk to us.
Well, you know, Kim, when Terry set this up, I knew it was the contest, but I am never going to say no to anybody in Oklahoma. Never, ever, ever. And Kim, you were so gracious with your hosting of me and all the friends that I made, Marcus and others in Oklahoma City. I was so thankful to have spent 14 years down there, and it was a wonderful time. So Kim, thank you. I'll do anything I can for amateur radio operators in Oklahoma.
Oh, you're always welcome, Tim. If there's nothing else from anybody, I think we should let Tim get back to his favorite contest and start jumping around between chairs.
I just turned on the amplifier for 80 meters, and so I see on the radios in back of me that the 80 meter band has got lots of signals on it. So I'm going to get busy making contacts there. I'll be fresh meat, and the contest will be over in about 58 minutes, and then we'll have a snack.
All right. Thank you very much. Have fun.
Okay. Thanks very much, Kim, and 73 to the Oklahoma DX Association.
Thanks, 73, Tim.